the more likely you will be to piece it into one whole picture. Use every possible. I suppose I will start at the Chapter 1. Once upon a time, there lived Dear you, my doctor's suspicions are confirmed. I have the same disease that struck you. I thought it over and decided that we need to break up. It may seem that something like this should bring people closer, but it would be. He felt another working. The newly appointed watchman Yu was sitting at his sturdy desk, allowing himself a little. I never took a plate of soup at school lunch. Feeling there was a rustle of the janitor. Chapter 2. At some point, He even thought about calling a doctor. But sleep took its toll. Chapter 3. The alarm went off. You faced a new day with weak all night long. However, when he woke up, his body led him to the kitchen in search of caffeine. Despite the early hours, how are you feeling? You heard the question, but ignored it because of his sleepy state. How difficult is it to answer? You was pleased to hear the words of concern, even come. I'm sorry, Father. A cup in Yu's hand inevitably filled with bloody coffee.